Hello and welcome to the North Bank podcast. There's Stef there holding his mug of warm coffee after his exploits yesterday in Liverpool. Holly is away in Ireland with family. We send him our best. He's got a few thoughts on the game, which we'll share later. Stef, welcome. Good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, mate. Listen, I was sat at home watching the game. You're the one who's done all the travelling, really. I think we should get straight into it, really. The Hill Dickinson Stadium. You sent us some lovely images from outside. Just tell us about it. Give us a sense of the day, how it developed.
Well, if people want to get a visual of some of the things I saw, they should check out our social media profiles. So at North Bank Pod, I've posted a video, particularly on YouTube, again at North Bank Pod, where I was outside and did a kind of sweep across on the outside.
The Mersey.
Yeah. Well, yes, it is.
It the Mersey?
So it's right in the Docklands. So I did a little sweep across. So literally you're looking at the water side, then the stadium, and then I cut it to then inside at kickoff. They had a tifo going. They were playing the Lars. It was all, very good. So yeah, just to try and sort of paint the picture with words a little bit, It's moved to the Docklands area, so the surrounding area really is just an active working Docklands. I would love to see it in the daylight to get a bit more of a perspective, but at night, I must say, I was really, really impressed. They haven't gone for the stereotypical kind of what I term the soulless bowl. Perfectly functional stadiums. I'm thinking the likes of Leicester, Southampton. Seem to remember Hull having a ground a bit like that as well. But they are a kind of retrofit. They're probably the same architect and designers and all that kind of stuff. And they are all the same. Everton's is a little bit different. I think it might be a little bit special because it's on the dockside. They've clearly tried to modernise it, which it is fantastic, but also incorporate their history. So you walk along the Docklands. They parked our supporters club coaching off to one side, bit of a walk away just to factor in all the people there and stuff. But you're walking along the wall of the Docklands, which I can't remember the name of, but I did see a stone that said like 1847 or something like that. So, and then you get to the stadium, and yes, there's a kind of blue like top to it that's all like illuminated and looks very modern, but they've gone for a kind of Victorian red brick style that's kind of around the outside as well. Lots of banners and mosaics and plaques and, celebrating their history, because Everton have won a lot of trophies in their history as well. Very, very old and traditional club. We were lucky because we got there quite early and spoke to a steward, and we said, can you walk all the way around it? He says, you can normally, but obviously they block it off. When the players arrive, they block that off so they can just gain access. So we said, okay, fine, we'll go around and then maybe double back or something. But as we walked around, the players had already arrived and they'd cleared that bit, so we were able to do a full lap. And from the front side, as you approach it walking, that's where all the food stalls are. Lovely fan park. You don't even need a ticket to go into that area. So it's open to anyone who just wants to soak up the atmosphere, although it's a bit of a walk from anywhere that's kind of built up. So you do kind of have to go out of your way. All very pleasant, all very nice. Christmas tree up as well, and all the, carols being sung and all that kind of stuff as well, which added to the atmosphere. But then literally on three sides of it, just water and Docklands. We saw the Merseyside ferry like going off at one point, and you can see the city lights, I presume looking over at Birkenhead, I guess. My geography of that part of the world's not brilliant. And it just looked really good. I really liked it. Inside, again, another thing that I quite like, it's about 52,000, I think it seats. They've gone for steep. Mm-hmm. That's what they've gone for, and it is curved at the corners, but it's a sharp curve. It's not a bowl that sort of like spreads around like the Emirates is. Frankly, they've gone for an end. And when they had their tifo going about the blue water of the Mersey and the Lars were playing, look very good. Really, really enjoyable. I'm going to say one or two negative things. One or two. The concourse area for away fans. There's not enough bars for a start, so queues for that were incredible, especially because Arsenal, great gesture from the club, free drink token from the club last away game before Christmas. That's something they seem to be doing quite a lot.
Nice.
So that's a nice little gesture. Yeah, like that. And here's the big thing. Being a man of a certain age, there is a distinct lack of toilets. I mean, there was one, but one of them is at one end. It's like, join this queue, and you go in, and there's just 3 little urinals. Now, I know that's like a petty thing, but again, when you're a man of a certain age, and I'm not a drinker, but other people, they're drinking beer, and that can have its effect. A little gripe is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
But no, really impressed with the stadium. I think it's great how they've mashed the modern with the history, and just very Everton, lovely club. I really like Everton, got a bit of a soft spot for them. Don't know why, based on nothing really, but very enjoyable.
Probably because they've been in the shadow of Liverpool as well. We kind of tend to side with those who aren't as... Yeah. Does the stadium, just before we move on, is the stadium like Spurs? I hate to say it, but they've got that one kind of tier going all the way up as a kind of cop feel for the behind one goal? Or is it all 2 tiers?
It's 2 tiers, but the bottom tier is longer. So you do get more, it still feels like an end, as it were. And that's where they clearly... There was a group of fans. I don't know if Everton have a group of fans like the Ashburton Army, but that sort of equivalent, because even when the TIFO bit was done, they had flags, and that's where most of the songs and things were emanating from. So they've definitely tried to work that. Yeah.
Good, mate. Thank you for that comprehensive overview. Join us next time where we'll be talking about...
Stefan's tour of football grounds in the UK.
Yeah, you should. You should, definitely. For your Christmas 2026, we'll have that one out.
We'll have the DVD out.
So the team news dropped, and I think all 3 of us got it bang on, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I mean, thinking about it, there weren't that many options.
That's the thing.
Certainly for the defence. And he went with the sort of midfield and forward line that we'd anticipated. So no surprises there. Give us just your sense of the game. I've got some stats, but just the feel inside the ground again, because it's probably different from what I experienced in terms of how we started and how it got going.
And this was interesting because it started to dawn on me as we moved away from the stadium, got back on the minibus. There's a few messages coming in from different people and groups, and we're seeing stuff online, that there really was a disconnect between what we were feeling in the stadium and what sort of people were seeing. I got the impression that there were a lot of people watching on TV that could see it was maybe more comfortable than it certainly felt in the ground. When we started, no one was surprised with the lineup, like, fine. We're not going to quibble of that. But certainly the approach to the game, it felt like it wasn't that it was ultra defensive. It wasn't a parking the bus performance, but it certainly wasn't the team who's looking to go top of the table and take that top spot back coming to dominate another team that started the day in 9th and were missing 2 or 3 key players. It felt like a team that were going there, humbly, sure, but also, I don't know, with a bit of a... I wanted us to have a bit more swagger about ourselves, because it felt like the game plan was, and there'll be other tacticians who are going into this way more deeply than I could ever do justice to. What I saw and what I felt was we were trying to draw Everton onto us in order to then maybe sort of counter it. That classic thing, pass around the back and then hit a vertical ball, try and catch them out. But we never really got the vertical stuff going, and certainly not quick enough. I mean, we tried a bit, but all it did was really allow Everton to press us and put us under pressure. And also, if they then had the ball, we kind of sat off. I think we didn't press with a huge amount of intensity. And I got to thinking about, because again, I saw Holly messaging in the group as well, talking about, is that the players or is that the instruction? Because it happened so early, I get the feeling it was the instruction. Is it the instruction because we are trying to manage the games in that way? Don't go all out at the start. You'll burn yourself out. You could risk injury and, who knows what will happen. But for me, that felt a little bit like all it did was give Everton some confidence when they were a bit hesitant going into the game about how confident they could be. And then ultimately, because, yeah, all right, we got a goal in the first half, but because we couldn't get that second, we've ended up expelling probably way more energy than we wanted later on in the game. Because it's on that scoreline knife edge. You say holding on, but holding on in terms of the scoreline, even though actually Everton probably weren't that threatening.
No.
But while it's 1-0, in the away end, we just couldn't settle. And I have to say, actually, quite a good away end at the start in terms of the atmosphere and the noise and the singing. But I think we all carried a little bit of nerves. That Wolves game scarred us a little bit. So we weren't exactly bouncing. We're top of the league, but we don't. And this is the thing, I feel guilty saying that of the players, that they're not necessarily acting that way, because we're not feeling that either. We're feeling like we're holding on to top spot, by the tips of our fingers kind of thing, rather than, with that swagger that we could get. So we weren't exactly rocking. And the way the scoreline stayed so close for so long only kind of enhanced that feeling. Everton didn't have a huge amount to cheer either, so it was, incredibly nervy.
Yeah. No, I felt that. I felt that too. I think there's definitely a hangover from the Wolves game. I'll share some stats in a minute, which are quite interesting about the comparison between the two, and stats versus eye test kind of thing. Just very briefly on what you just said about that circulating around the back and then finding a trigger to move forward. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we quite got that right. And what I find sometimes is when we are in that sort of slower tempo, is that it's a sort of law of diminishing returns in that you're more likely to make a mistake. And that's how it felt. I think we gave the way. We turned it over really cheaply quite a few times because there's that, like I always say, more intensity, more greater tempo, because that's what our players are good at, is like receiving a ball that's fizzed into you where you can use the pace on it to either stop it dead or use the pace to kind of move forward, push it aside. That's what we're good at generally, I think. And it just felt like it's a bit too safey, and those triggers weren't decisive enough. And that's where the turnovers were happening for me throughout the game, into the second half as well. Obviously, Everton came at us more in the second half, so there was a bit more space. Let me just share some stats with you. Versus Wolves, okay? Holly, I think you'll enjoy this. So 65% possession in the Everton game, 69.2 v Wolves. Our XG, 1.81 versus 0.2 for Everton. In the Wolves game, 1.02 versus 0.38 for Wolves. So obviously they were higher. Wolves were higher. And we were greater yesterday. 13 shots yesterday, 2 on target. 5 shots for Everton, 1 on target. In the Wolves game, 16 shots on target. 16 shots, 2 on target. 3 shots for Wolves, 2 on target. 43 touches in the box yesterday, 13 for Everton. 41 for the Wolves game, 14 for Wolves. So there are some, very, very tight there. No saves for Pickford yesterday, according to the BBC stats. None. We hit the post a couple of times. 2 saves in the Wolves game for their keeper. We hit the woodwork twice yesterday, once versus Wolves. Pass accuracy, this is the one that really got me. 87.6% yesterday in the Everton game. 87.4% in the Wolves game. Almost identical, yet it felt so different. And I don't know whether that's because with possession, it's a kind of general stat. You're more likely to give the ball away in the attacking third, which is kind of accepted when attacks break down. And when you're in defence, that's where you would hope your stats are higher, so it kind of evens out. So I would need to see that kind of field tilt stat to know how that marries, but to have almost identical pass accuracy in both games when it definitely felt more cagey in the Wolves game for obvious reasons. Yeah. So it's that feeling thing, isn't it, of like what we felt after the Wolves game. Yes, by the end of Everton game, I felt quite comfortable, which is rare for me watching the final minutes, because I just thought they're not threatening us, as obviously the Wolves game had a mad feeling. So by the end of the game, you're saying you still felt anything could happen?
Yes, but that was driven mainly by the scoreline. It really was. And I do have to give some credit to the team because there were spells in the game with some good link-up play where we were in the ground. There was some really good movement and passing between Timber and Saka. Sometimes they kind of spoiled each other's work, getting in each other's way, making similar runs. We had someone message us on BlueSky who basically said there were a couple of moments where Saka either made a run and carried Everton players into the way of Gyokeres, and mentioned the moment when him and Saka and Timber went for the same ball. There's a sort of fluency issue with it, but there were times when we were a bit more
fluent,
intense in the game, and increased the pace of the passing and all those sorts of things. And all it made us think was, do more of that, really. Is it about managing load, or is it just respecting Everton that bit more? And then you wonder about, was it complacency because we were at home to the bottom team against Wolves that we were a bit more proactive? But then there was that thing, we finally got the goal against Wolves, and then seemed to just, like you talked about field tilt. I don't know how it worked, but we just dropped off, which was such a bizarre thing to do. So for Everton yesterday, that starting from the back, doing that slow build-up from the back seemed to be the approach for the day, but it took us a while. And like you say, Pickford had very little to do, but we still hit the post a couple of times. I mean, they don't count as shots on target, but on another day, they go in. I mean, Trossard's, we were ready to go.
Certainly the Trossard one, yeah.
We were ready to go because that looked like it was going in, and it was so disappointing not to. On another day, it would have looked more comfortable. And certainly then felt more comfortable, but it was okay.
I'd say as well that away, you play certainly in the first 20 minutes. You do want to maybe silence the crowd and play with that, taking the sting out of it, which we would accept. And again, if you took this game in isolation and said, well, that was our game plan, I think because of the hangover of the Wolves thing, we were expecting a reaction. I mentioned very quickly yesterday on that instant reaction that before all this tranche of games, I'd kind of earmarked as Wolves as the one, yes, I want to see a reaction and a performance. Everton, I just want the 3 points, But obviously that sentiment changes slightly when you've come off the back of the Wolves one, and we were all just wanting to see a bit more from the team, I guess. I'll just run through some of the main points, just the sort of chronology of the first half, because it did lack kind of clear goal-scoring chances. There was that moment, though, just before the penalty where Gyokeres got the wrong side of O'Brien and there was a cross coming in. I don't know from which end of the ground you were. I think it's
that
the
was
other
the other
side.
end.
Right. And I don't know if you've had a chance to see it again, but he clearly got the wrong side of him and the cross came in and Gyokeres basically ends up in the net as if he'd been shoved in. And I'm watching it thinking, does he need to go down there? And if he'd stayed on his feet, it's basically an open goal. So why would he throw himself unless he got his feet in a mess? I've watched it a few times and I can't see an obvious shove in the back from O'Brien. So that was just one moment there that made me think, and followed up, unfortunately, by Gyokeres going to ground quite a few times, where we'd mentioned before, maybe that's his thing when things aren't going his way. It's a sort of frustration, but I just worry that there's a kind of, I'm sure we'll come on to talking about him more, a sort of, what's the word, like a coordination issue, where he looks kind of awkward sometimes, and maybe that contributes in some way. I don't know. But
I'm just going to go off the eye test and reflect the noise made around me in the away end and people I was on travelling with the minibus. He's not quite passing it. He's not passing the eye test at the minute for a few people. And the common thing that was coming up yesterday, even in the last couple of games, is those 50-50 sort of moments, whether it's tussling with a player when the ball is in the air or whether it's trying to run onto the end of something. It's got to win more of those, whether it's his strength, whether it's his pace, which a lot of people are worried about as well. We just want to see him come out on top of those a little bit more. Yeah. So that he can just get his foot on the ball and hold it up.
It bounced off him a few times, didn't it?
Yeah. And there was one moment when it happened and we sort of clapped and it's like, actually, that should be sort of par for the course, really. Yeah. So he's got to do a bit more of that. I mean, I saw a stat which I can't quote exactly, but just in terms of when I was scrolling through stuff, we are creating a slightly higher XG and chances with him on the pitch. So I think that's starting to improve in terms of the team. You've said about building relationships, and it will certainly help over time, but still a ways to go. What I'm just really glad of is that there is that variety there. You know, Jesus came on and was there and, you know, did some bits. Marino is obviously still an option, and Havertz to come back at some point as well.
Yeah. Good. Well, I mean, after that, obviously the corner led to the penalty, which I don't think we'll ever see a clearer penalty.
Right. So it happened, and I seemed to be the only one in the away end, because it was the other end of the pitch for us, don't get me wrong, but I said, he's handled that as penalty. And everyone's looking at me going, what the hell have you seen? Like, shut up. And then when it sort of, the thing came up, said VAR checking, smug grin on my face. I said, I look, new glasses, you see, new glasses. I just couldn't believe, like, his hand was up there. It was a volleyball move. It was weird.
Both hands as well.
Yeah, it's very strange. Sort of instinct moment, I guess, sort of took over. And it was interesting that Arteta said afterwards that it was the player's decision to give it to Gyokeres. And he said the players in that decision made the right decision. He's buried it. And I must say, he hit it so bloody hard.
Yeah.
Another comparison was made. I think I might have made it, actually. I'm getting Podolski vibes off Gyokeres. Because power in the shot, whoa, it's amazing. But an unfussy kind of player in a way. I know Podolski was more sort of off the wing, not a full-on number 9. But yeah, maybe there's a link there.
Yeah, and in the way that they're sort of unrefined, which, again, we've said this before. I don't care if he looks awkward as long as he does the job. You know, Erling Haaland isn't exactly a ballet dancer, you know, on the pitch. It really doesn't matter so long as you use it to good effect. You know, that awkwardness will bamboozle some people. Remember, Kanu used to tie people in knots because I don't think he knew what he was doing with the ball half the time. So, bamboozling. Okay, so we moved into the second half, and I think, as expected, Everton came at us a bit more and kind of left a bit more space, I think, for us. I think that's when we really had our best chances. You know, I think Saka's chance was the best of the lot, really, for me. Oh, Trossard hitting the post, but Saka had time to really pick his place. He had no one challenging him. It was a lovely cutback, I think, from Timber.
Can I pick up on that?
Yeah, please.
The incident you mentioned about Gyokeres sort of ending up in the net, that isn't on the short highlights that Arsenal put on at midnight last night, which they're allowed to do. All they had was more of the major sort of incidents here and there, one of which was that Saka chance. And the thing that I didn't see at the time, because that was in front of us then, again, I was like you, just thinking, Saka, come on, you maybe got to do better there. And I did think it was a good pass by Timber. What I didn't realise is that as the ball goes through to Timber, he could have also played it across the goal for Gyokeres to tap in. You know, it was maybe it wasn't the most clear channel for him to make that cross. Covering defender maybe could have got a foot in. Pickford maybe could have got a hand out to it, but it certainly was an option. So I thought it was interesting that Saka... Look, the fact that he picks out Saka and Saka's got the chance to score means it's fine. But at the same time, I'm sure there will be other runs by that. I was quite surprised to see that at the time, that Gyokeres was a run. Because there, we've just mentioned about we want Gyokeres to do this, that and the other. Well, that's one thing he did right there. That was the right run for him to make. He's in front of his man. He's running to goal. He's got to tap in if the ball can find him. Obviously, that's not easy. I'm not blaming Timber like massively for that, but he was making the run.
Yeah. I thought Saka as well, relatively quiet yesterday. And they double teamed him as often happens, but he didn't seem to have the solutions.
I thought he was quite good. He won man of the match. So
Saka did,
yeah. That's official Premier League man of the match. So it's an interesting one.
It did, yeah. And on what bar we hold him to, perhaps.
But then there was some really good link-up play midfield. What was disappointing was that it was those, part of the basics that Arteta goes on is both boxes. And everything in between, I thought Saka was excellent. First touch that would allow him to then roll a player and then go forward. But actually, just those final executions in the box. The chance that he missed and a few crosses here and there. Corners were pretty good. He nearly scored from one of them, which Pickford had to punch away. So yeah, I think in the middle of the pitch, I thought he was excellent. But just because he's at such a high standard, that's the thing.
That's it. I think that's it, mate. I'm probably being harsh, but again, yes, it's that thing of we've set the bar so high for him.
Well, it'll be interesting when we go through our sort of like summary of the things, but should I read out what Holly said?
Yeah, please do, yeah.
So Holly's messaged us from Ireland. He says, caveat to all his comments is that he hasn't even seen the penalty we scored. So he's obviously consumed the game as best he can in Ireland with, I don't know, like horse-driven Wi-Fi or something like that.
You said it, not me.
Sorry, we're not supposed to do the lazy stereotypes. But anyway, he says, but a better performance than Wolves, tough away ground, clean sheet, 3 points, top at Christmas. Nervy at the end, but restricted them to very little. No new injuries, as far as I know. His negatives are that it's not taking chances to put the game to bed. First half poor again, and Gyokeres' all-round game must improve, or we need a new striker.
Wow, yeah.
Dropping that in just before January. Okay, interesting.
That is, well, okay. Because my thing with Gyok, as I mentioned, if people missed it, was just to sort of say how we're, as a team, responsible for providing him in the way that he needs to be provided, but also for him to understand the favourite ways of passing of his teammates, if you see what I mean. So does Saka like to put it into feet, or does he prefer to put it into the space in front of you, or has he got a tendency to put a bit more pace on it or whatever? I mean, this is off the top of my head. So it's that kind of, it's the relationship building, but it comes from both. It's not just all on Gyokeres, is my point.
And it's hard because whatever I say, I'm going to either sound like I'm just defending him, and I'm not. I want Gyokeres to improve and be better,
yes,
and I
as
think
we
there
all do,
are things to do. But there is a thing about, comparing him to sort of other players and maybe other strikers. Haaland is a unicorn striker.
Yeah.
He's a freak. He's going to be regarded in the same breath as the likes of Ronaldo and Messi, just in terms of his sheer output. I don't think he's nearly as good a player as either of those, but he's scoring goals at a rate that no one has ever seen before. But he's also a player that's gone into a Man City team that is successful and a well-oiled machine, and they just seem to have, played to his strengths, like, to begin with. And although he probably cost about the same as Gyokeres, he's on way higher wages than him. So then you look at other strikers he's compared to. Well, Isak has had a very dodgy start to his life at Liverpool and cost twice as much as Gyokeres. So there's other caveats you can make to that. And there's an argument, but with Havertz out, we're not able to keep him maybe as fresh, and that's why he picked up his injury. So yes, absolutely sort of want him to be doing better, but hopefully in time those relationships will improve and we'll see some of that.
Yeah. The other thing to note, of course, is that we do score more by a committee, and that I said at the beginning of the season, I thought if we got 15 league goals from him, that would be a really good return. Thereabouts. And I stick by that.
Was he halfway there now? It must be 7 or 8.
7. Yeah, I think it's 7. But it's not, we're not leaning on him as a 25, 30 goal a season, because that's not what we do. We haven't done that for years. We don't have a true 9 spearhead that's going to deliver. Like you said, Haaland is an exception. So long as he contributes and builds those relationships, I think we'll see an improvement. But we are also aware of his limitations, so let's not expect.
And that's why I'm also looking at the rest of the team, because I do want to see a bit more output from the likes of Odegaard, in particular, Martinelli in the league. Because his Champions League form is quite good, but there could be goals from elsewhere. We're missing Gabriel, and there's not many defenders that other teams would talk about their own defenders in this way, but we miss him in both boxes as well, because he can be lethal from corners and alike.
We are almost at full strength on paper. We look at yesterday's team, and it was almost on strength. Do you think, in terms of us improving, is there something systemic apart from Gyokeres, or do you think everything is just a case of form and clicking as we move into this sort of Christmas period?
Well, I mean, I mentioned about whether I think it's the players being a little bit sort of jaded or just lacking a bit of confidence. Because again, I don't feel like we're carrying ourselves like a team who are top of the league. I know Holly's talked about this idea of millionaire mindset,
Yes.
applying it to footballers. To be champions, you've got to act like champions first, maybe, in order to do that. And I feel like we're sort of limping to top at Christmas a little bit, and I just want to see a bit more of that. Maybe it is about freshness and form and we might click, but I also feel like we're in a bit of control FC phase at the moment, and I worry that is fine. We really got away with one against Wolves, a couple of good deliveries, but own goals. Yep. Everton yesterday was better, but like you say, statistically it wasn't massively different. But then it's the eye test versus what you can see in terms of the data, and it'll be interesting to see how that's spun by the likes of, the stats guys online, or by Arteta himself and what he wants. I think he sounded like he was fairly pleased with stuff yesterday, but that's mainly because he knows that Everton would be tough, and it's a team and a manager he's not had a huge amount of success against. What were they, third in the teams that we've dropped the most points against, or something like that? We said beforehand. So yeah,
a depleted Everton yesterday, it has to be said as well. They were missing quite a few key players from the AFCON, and I think Dewsbury Hall missing as well. Just very quickly as well on that thing of Holly's bugbear is whether it's Arteta that gives them that instructive, go out and play this way defensively, in other words, or whether it's something subconscious that the players bring out there. That's another, I think, point to debate, is that do they go into that control FC slightly more defensive mindset because that's how they've been drilled to? Even when Arteta's waving them forward on the touchline, they're thinking, but hang on a minute, it's not, normally what we do in this drill on the training ground is we drop off and we, so there's, I don't know, there is no sort of binary answer there, because I don't think we'll ever find out, because it is so sort of so nuanced. Shall we move on to the takeaways?
Go on, let's do it.
So, man of the match for you?
I did have Saka down. It was a toss-up between him and Timber for me. Again, probably biased because of the view I had of the game, looking down that right side, especially in the second half. But yeah, just the link-up play, the first touches, Saka rolled players a couple of times, and I just thought it was pretty good. And then I've seen some stats online. I think Cannon Stats, a couple of American guys who do a lot of coverage for Arsenal, said actually in the game they did sort of like heat maps for things. We actually had a left side bias overall by the end of the game. I think that might have been coloured ever so slightly because late on, especially when Martinelli came on, everything seemed to be then sort of focused on that side of the pitch a little bit more. That was where we were doing the classic thing of trying to run it to the corner and see it out. But yeah, so I thought Saka was really good. But then at the same time, did anyone massively stand out? Not sure, but Saka.
Did Holly have one?
He didn't. He didn't do his breakdown by those categories. So let's have yours.
I was Rice. I was Team Rice yesterday, just because of the engine. There was one superb tackle he made in the first half, which was just like breathtaking. Go gadget legs. So yeah, for me, Rice. How about who were you impressed by?
Calafiori. He was doing his classic thing quite early on where he would almost go stand as an auxiliary forward in the front line and then Trossard would be out wide. But he had that coming together with Nkapie, where he basically nearly like bajanxed himself and landed like on his chest or something. And at that point, I don't know, he looked like he wasn't going to continue and the bench was scrambling thinking that they might have to make the change. So even if it's just to acknowledge that he recovered from that, made a couple of good interceptions, Late on in the game, I noticed a couple of times when he anticipated passes by the Everton players that he was able to intercept, which I quite liked. We were quite dominant. And again, it didn't feel this way. I know James Benge of CBS posted a few stats, which he updated and didn't get quite right. But we restricted Everton to very few successful passes from the 80th minute onwards. So what felt like a more nervy end perhaps wasn't. And I think Calafiori was certainly a part of that.
No, good call. And I have to put my hand up and say I think he's been a massively improved defender this season, considering my fears were that someone of his build isn't as nimble as my idea of a traditional fullback with a lower, timber, basically. So when I saw his off-the-ball work in his first season last year, I wasn't as confident, but I think he's come on leaps and bounds. There's a lot of good work been gone into him, I think, as a defender, because there's no doubting his ability on the ball. But as a defender, his body shape, everything is just massively improved. I've put down, I thought about this, I liked Saliba, considering Saliba's been out and he's come back into an unfamiliar pairing with Nkapie. I was really impressed with his assuredness, except there was just the one moment, again, it was one of those lapses where we were in a kind of slight slow tempo phase in the second half, and he gave a really cheap ball away, which led to an opportunity for them where I think Zubimendi made a challenge, which there was a penalty shout for. And then he also booted Barry in the box. And again, you may not have seen this.
Not at the time, no.
So Barry's back to goal and he's got the ball coming to him, and basically Saliba goes through his foot, kicks his foot, and Barry makes the most of it, I think, and sort of spins in the air and does the kind of fallen angel thing. Very reminiscent of, I think it was Jesus against Villa, where we didn't get the shout. So you kind of look at those and think, well, okay, you've seen them given, but also we've seen them not given. So
exactly,
one could argue we possibly dodged a bullet there, because another ref may well have given that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw that same clip afterwards, and a lot of people, Arsenal fans, so Everton fans, rightly, probably going, this should probably be a penalty. And then lots of Arsenal fans going, yeah, it probably should. Because last season, we drew up points, or had the chance to get points against Villa, which, no, not last season, maybe the season before, had the chance to get points against Villa, which could have maybe won us the title for the exact same thing on Gabriel Jesus, not given. So, yeah. That's where my sympathy ends.
Yeah. No, exactly. Do we have a positive for the...
I mean, it's kind of what Holly said, isn't it? 3 points, clean sheet, top of Christmas. What more can you say?
Yeah. Winning ugly, kind of, I guess. And the negative?
Right. So, just to put in brackets, especially in first halves, I've got a list of twos. Too deep, too safe, too indirect, too slow, too weak. I just feel like if first halves are not... Here's the thing. So I had my perception of how I'm comparing things, especially with Man City, changed yesterday. So before, I was looking at the earlier game where Man City beat West Ham at home. Now, we all expected West Ham to get beaten by Man City. That's not the issue. The thing was the way Man City went about it. They scored early and coasted the game out. That's what I want us to do, but we're not doing that. However, my mindset was changed by someone I was with saying, yes, in terms of the weekend, sure, you can see that we've put in a lot of effort against Everton, and lots of players have played the 90 minutes and probably expelled a lot of energy, and City were at home and 3-0 up, able to coast. I haven't looked, but they probably made some substitutions to rest some players and all that kind of thing. But he said, don't do that. Compare the equivalent games. So Man City beat West Ham at home comfortably 3-0. We beat West Ham at home comfortably 2-0. That's what you compare. They haven't gone to Everton yet, and they could face Everton at a better time. We faced Everton yesterday at a pretty good time, missing, really key important players. And therefore they could trip up against Everton when they've got those players back. I don't know when they play them, but yeah, it could be a difference. And that made me just think, oh yeah, okay, fine. I'm with you there.
Is that they were your points and not Holly's? Did Holly have anything on that?
Well, his negative takeaway was a little bit like the first half. Again, what did he say? Yeah, first half poor again. Gyokeres' all-round game must improve. Stunning.
Well, yeah. Uh,
What about
I
you?
just wrote, well, in reflection of what I said earlier about whether it's systemic with Gyokeres, is he just too limited? Was my concern on that. So it was negative. Form isn't quite there, but is it? Yeah, I think once players around him learn him better, then we'll see some more results. He said, hopefully. Good. Shall we move on to the Palace game? Unless you've got any other thoughts on yesterday.
No, it was a good day. Got back home at 3:30 a.m. And as much as it's nice to watch a game under the lights, to all the broadcasters out there who are clearly making that decision, can you think of us? It's Christmas. Like for a lot of people, it's not the day itself; it's the day after. There'll be people today, and it's Christmas holidays. It's the last Sunday, weekend day before Christmas, and there'll be fans who, and everyone will say, yeah, but you're the ones in the privileged position to go and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, fine, but, it doesn't have to be that way. People would get the same enjoyment watching it on TV, a little bit earlier so people can get back. So that's where it hits the fans. I likened it to, we're the addicts in this situation, and football, the Premier League and the broadcasters, they're the dealers who keep sort of like spoon feeding us, keep us reeled in, from that sort of thing. And they could just be a little bit kinder with some of those fixtures.
This is a metaphor that could run and run. I think
we'll see. But yeah, 3:30 a.m. And I was one of the first drop-offs. There'll be people I was with on the minibus, and poor old shout out to Ben, who I know listens. Hello, Ben. Driving, he goes past his house to drop some people off and then has to double back. I mean, it would have been stupid o'clock. Those are the legends of fans who are doing that.
Yes, indeed. And yeah, we've got.
And I'm going to do it all again on Tuesday.
I was going to say we've got one more game before Christmas, which is Palace, who've just shipped, I think, 6 in their last couple of games, one with a weakened side in the Europa Conference, and then against, bizarrely, Leeds yesterday, got absolutely hammered, didn't they?
4-1.
So it'd be interesting to see what sort of team they put out for that, whether they decide to invest a bit more in the League Cup as a potential trophy. Obviously, we will have an eye on rotation as well. Do you want to give us Holly's thoughts on that?
Yes, I can. I've just clicked off the thing where it says that. Right. He's literally just got Palace team. So He says, expect heavy rotation, helps we're up against a team struggling for form. But this is what he's gone with. Kepa in goal, Timber, Saliba, Nketiah, Lewis Skelly, brackets, wouldn't start Saliba or Timber if we had genuine alternatives available. Get that. Midfield 3, Norgard, Marino, Eze, front 3, Madueke, Jesus, Martinelli. And then he says, not sure Jesus ready for a whole game, but 60 minutes should be okay. Yeah, okay.
I'll jump in with mine because just off the back of that, because I would say exactly the same, but I think he'll start Gyokeres to get more minutes into him. And I agree with the backline thing. I would dearly love to rest Saliba and Timber. I thought about possibly bringing Norgard back in at centre half to rest Saliba, but knowing Arteta, I think he will go with Saliba and Timber and then hopefully be able to give them a bit of time off towards the end of the game. And I think I do think he'll start Gyokeres, but as you were for the midfield.
Yeah, so I've got exactly the same team, but what I'm thinking is, maybe the option would be Norgard in central defence. I mean, Marley Salmon came on against Bruges in the Champions League. Is that even a viable option? No, he probably starts Timber and Saliba because what else can you do? And then we'll look to change it if we can. But it is a little bit desperate in that sense. But we will see. I mean, Waneri's there as well. So this is the thing for me for the midfield 3. But would you play almost Marino as a holding midfielder and have Norgard as a central defence? So even if you can just rotate one of Saliba or Timber, just for something, I know, because not that I want to take Palace lightly, but I'm thinking of the knock-on games. Like, there is no natural replacement for Timber unless you go with Marley Salmon, who is, 16, 17? Like, ridiculously young for something like that. And he's, if not Palace, then not at all, because he's not going to do it in a Premier League game. But, yeah, we'll see.
Nichols is the only other alternative, which, positionally, but I think he's just too raw. And I do think your point on Waneri is that he is knocking on the door for a start in games like this. Yeah. So he may well start him, but I just think he'll lean into that kind of slightly more tried and tested at this stage of the competition to start with, anyway. In Norgard and Marino in midfield, I mean.
And he'll be looking at, look, the draw's already been done for the semi-final. Chelsea, so travel's not a factor. We're at home in the second leg.
Mm-hmm.
Why not go for it a little bit? That's fine. But it's the knock-on, isn't it? It's literally just about sort of minutes. It will be a strong team, but how you factor in that defence, not sure.
The bench will be very strong, whichever way it goes.
Well, exactly.
What's your score prediction?
Holly, I'll go with Holly's first. He must have put it on another message. Look, I'll say mine. I've gone 2-0 Arsenal. I just think I watched Palace against Coups, who my favourite new team name that I've learnt recently. And as good as they were, it was a very young side, and ultimately they let the lead slip, and and then Leeds yesterday. All right, they played a Calvert-Lewin team who's in form, but the fact that they rotated and went stronger and still came out 4-1, that's a team that, whether confidence has gone or it's just too many minutes in the legs, the schedule has just caught up with them. So again, it's about playing teams at the right time. I think we're playing Palace at the right time.
Yeah.
2-0 Arsenal.
I can tell you what Holly said, because I have the same score and it's the same as you.
Oh.
So we're all 2-0. We're all going 2-0. And,
interesting.
Yeah, based on a lot of what you've just said, I do think Palace are in a bit of a funk. And I wonder whether they will... Where do they... It's like the boy with the dam, there are holes springing up. Which hole do you plug first? Do you want your league form to be more impressive, to improve? So in which case you say, okay, we'll go a little bit weaker in the League Cup and Europa. I don't know how that works. I think they're in that middle tranche, aren't they? Whereby
they've got a playoff round before the round of 16.
Yeah. We will see. Any other thoughts?
I've got a couple of things that I want to talk about, if that's all right. Because as we're getting up to the Christmas period, and we've talked about Arsenal being top at Christmas, that's great. So I just wanted to talk about the North Bank Podcast's Fantasy Football League that we set up at the start of the season. And I want to give a big shout out to Patrick Finney, whose team Hybrid United is top of the North Bank Podcast Fantasy Football League. Second is my pal George, who we go on the supporters club together. He's usually my lift to go and catch the bus. His team is called Nonny and Clyde, very good, and they're second. I also wanted to give a shout out to, because we haven't really mentioned this before, I think my favourite team name of all the people that are in there is Old Havertz Kai Hard from Neil Tyler. So thank you, Neil, for that. And then also, it's a good checkpoint for us and our predictions in the Premier League. So we always predict what the score will be in the Premier League. We get 3 points if we get the score absolutely bang on and the result, and 1 point if we just get the result right. Me and Holly are level pegging on 18 points each, and you're way out in front on 22. So
wowzers. You're top at Christmas.
We are top at Christmas. Now, because I've got a reputation as Eeyore and always thinking pessimistically, I think it's interesting that this year, especially last year, because I was actually nearly bang on, and we all had a very disappointing season, as we'd all agree. We're currently on 39 points in, the real world, that is, and top at Christmas. If my predictions had all been right, we'd be on 45 points. So I'm overestimating the team a little bit. So, Eeyore has softened somewhat, I think.
You need to get more realistic. Love it. So is the Fantasy Leagues something that people can join now, or is it?
They can still join now. Yeah, I have absolutely no idea what the joining code is for people. That will be on some kind of note hidden somewhere in my phone, which if I just scroll down
we dig it out, can we put it in the show notes of the podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do
just
that.
Just for... I've got a final thing to add as well, just before we go for Christmas, because I think we'll probably reconvene maybe, because you'll be at the game, right, for the Palace game?
I'm going to the Palace game, and then I'll be also there at
Brighton. So will I be. So we won't do another full kind of pod until...
Probably after Brighton now.
After Brighton. But I received in the post a Christmas gift from a viewer, listener, and it is an Arsenal gnome.
Woohoo!
There we go. An Arsenal gnome. Really thoughtful gift, because obviously I've got a bit of a history with gnomes in my garden, as people who listen to the pod will know, in that I give them a good kicking if it's not going too well. But I promise I won't give this one a kicking, because he's got a lovely Arsenal kit on. And my daughter's already named him Max as well.
Oh.
So this is Max, everyone. Max, the Arsenal gnome. I hope he brings us lots of luck. I might actually keep him here in the studio so that he can just kind of oversee stuff as, you know, as the season progresses. So thank you to whoever sent that in. It's very much appreciated, Max. I think we'll leave it there, and we'll reconvene. We'll do a very quick instant reaction after the Palace game, and then we'll get together for the Brighton game. So if we don't speak to you before, have a lovely Christmas.
Happy Christmas.
See ya. The North Bank, an Arsenal podcast. Subscribe, rate and review on your app, and find us on your socials at North Bank Pod. Email hello@thenorthbankafc.com and check out our website, thenorthbankafc.com. Produced by the Podcast Company.